Welcome to my latest sample essay for IELTS, and it's going to be on the topic of sleep, or rather, not being able to get to sleep. So this man is lying in bed, it's 2:37 a.m. in the morning, he can't get to sleep, he's got a bottle of pills, maybe to help him get to sleep. He's not very happy. And we're going to write an IELTS sample essay on that topic. And here is the task. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task, write about the following topic. Nowadays, many people complain that they have difficulties getting enough sleep. What problems can lack of sleep cause? What can be done about lack of sleep? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience, and write at least 250 words. This is from the Cambridge IELTS General Training Authentic Papers series. It's Book 15, Test 2 in Book 15 for the General Training Test. And as always, I recommend a 4-step planning approach when you're answering IELTS essays. So the 4 steps: first of all, you need to spend time understanding the task. Number 2, you need to decide your position, or in other words, your answers to the essay question. Step 3, you need to extend your ideas, and the final step is to structure your essay. In other words, to put it into paragraphs. So let's start with step number 1, understand the task. So let's go back to the task, and here is the topic statement. Nowadays, many people complain that they have difficulties getting enough sleep. So people say that they don't sleep enough. Maybe they can't get to sleep, or they only sleep perhaps 5 or 6 hours a night. And I think we're supposed to, doctors say, get about 7 or 8 hours sleep a night. So that's the topic statement. And how should we respond to this topic? Well, there are 2 questions here. The first question is, what problems can lack of sleep cause? Now, you've got to read this question carefully. Many students will read this question quickly, and they will see the word cause, and they might write about the causes of not being able to get enough sleep. For example, drinking too much caffeine or using their phone late at night. So that's what causes lack of sleep. But the question isn't about the causes of lack of sleep. It's about the problems that lack of sleep causes. It's actually this question here. I've reworded it here. What problems are caused by lack of sleep? So the wording is a little bit tricky, can cause problems. That's why it's important to spend time analysing the question, making sure you understand the question. So you need to say what the problems are. And the second question, what can be done about lack of sleep? This is a bit easier. What can be done? When you see those words, IELTS is asking you to present some solutions to the problem. How can we solve the problem of not getting enough sleep? So that's our task. Now let's go on to deciding our position. And in this kind of essay question, your position is simply your answers to the essay questions. There are 2 questions, remember. So my position is my answer, my answers to those 2 questions. So one question, what problems are caused by lack of sleep? You will have your own answers to this. My answers, well, poor concentration. So if you have lack of sleep, if you can't get to sleep during the night, maybe you only get a few hours sleep, the next day you will have poor concentration. That's a short-term problem. A long-term problem is poor health. I'll explain why I think that in a bit more detail. So I could just have those two ideas, but I could put a quick third idea into my essay as well. You can have a bad mood. I know from personal experience that if I don't get enough sleep, the next day I'm in a bad mood. I'm angry. So how can we solve that problem? How can we solve the problem of not being able to get enough sleep? Well, the first one I think of is medication. Again, I'll explain that in a little bit more detail when I plan the essay. And my second idea is evening habits. Again, I'll explain that in more detail in a moment when I extend my idea. So this is the third step in my planning approach. So let's do a plan where I extend my ideas. Let's just have a reminder of the task. I've put this into my own words now to make it a bit simpler for me to think about. So people don't get enough sleep. What problems are caused by lack of sleep? What can be done about lack of sleep? So we're going to think about the problems and what can be done, the solutions. So my main ideas were poor concentration and poor health, also bad mood, but that was quite a quick third idea. So let's develop this first idea, poor concentration. What do I mean by that? So I can explain this in more detail. So lack of sleep affects your concentration. It makes it worse. And I can explain that in even more detail, or maybe I could give some specific examples of why that's a problem. So there are some people that have jobs where you really need to be able to concentrate properly. So lack of sleep is a problem in certain jobs, for example, doctors or drivers, lorry drivers, truck drivers, car drivers. So that explains this in more detail, this idea of poor concentration. So when we talk about extending ideas, we mean to go into more detail, maybe by supporting your arguments or by giving some specific examples. What about poor health? So let's extend this idea. What do I mean by poor health? Well, the body needs sleep to rejuvenate, to restore itself from illness or from injury. For example, lack of sleep can cause diabetes. It can also cause cancer. So if you don't get enough sleep, you can get diseases. What can be done about the problem? What can be done about lack of sleep? Well, I had two main ideas. Firstly, medication, and secondly, evening habits. So let me explain these in more detail. I'll plan these in more detail. So medication. There are drugs and remedies that can help people sleep. For example, some specific examples I can think of from my own personal knowledge and experience are there's a drug called temazepam, which helps people get to sleep, very powerful drug. Also melatonin and chamomile tea. In fact, from my own personal experience, I've taken melatonin and chamomile tea to help me get to sleep. What about evening habits? Well, I used to have trouble getting to sleep. I still do sometimes, but I know that good evening habits help you get to sleep. So let's extend this in more detail. So you can wind down in the evening. You can get your brain ready for sleep. And what do I mean by winding down? Well, here are some specific examples of what I mean. You can read, or you can relax, and you can also avoid looking at screens, at TV screens, laptop, tablet, phone screens. You can avoid them completely. And these are evening habits that can help you wind down. So as you can see here in my plan, I've taken my 4 main ideas: poor concentration, poor health, medication, evening habits, and I've extended these ideas. I've given more detail, I've given some explanations and some specific examples of what I'm talking about. Which means that when I get to write my essay, I don't really need to think about my ideas. I can just use my plan, as I'll show you in a moment. Step 4 in my planning approach is to structure your essay. This is really fast. It's simply a case of deciding which ideas, which parts of your plan go into which paragraphs. So I'm going to write about the problems in body paragraph 1, and I'm going to write about the solutions in body paragraph 2. You don't have to do it this way. Many people suggest that you write about one problem and its specific solution in one body paragraph, and a separate problem and its solution in another body paragraph. But for this particular essay, this structure works very well. Now it's time to write my essay. So I'm going to start by writing the introduction to my essay. And in the introduction, we need to do 2 things. We need to introduce our reader to the task, and we need to introduce our reader to our response. In this essay, in fact, in most IELTS essays, you can simply paraphrase the topic statement as your introduction. So in the introduction, in the task, the topic statement says, "Nowadays, many people complain that they have difficulties getting enough sleep." So I'm going to rewrite that. People are increasingly reporting difficulties sleeping, often as a result of our modern 24/7 lifestyle. So that's simply another way of writing the topic statement. So that's introduced my reader, the IELTS examiner in this case, to the task. Now I'm going to introduce our reader to our response. I'm simply going to write down what I'm going to talk about. This essay will consider the problems caused by lack of sleep, along with some solutions. And that's it. That's all I need to write for my introduction. Just 2 sentences is almost always sufficient for an introduction to an IELTS essay. So now we need to get onto our body paragraphs to get to our main ideas. And I'm going to start in body paragraph 1, writing about the idea of poor concentration. I'll move that there so I can keep this in mind while I write. So let's put that plan into words. Lack of sleep obviously causes tiredness, but perhaps more importantly, to reduced ability to concentrate. So now let's extend that idea in a bit more detail. When tired, the brain will struggle to focus for any length of time. And this can be a serious issue for workers who need to concentrate intensely, such as drivers and doctors. So these 2 sentences extend and explain my idea from my plan about poor concentration and why the brain has poor concentration. So you can't focus, and that's a big problem for some workers. Now let's continue body paragraph 1 by talking about poor health. Let's take this from my plan and let me write about poor health. This is the second part of body paragraph 1. Sleep also helps the body to rejuvenate and heal. rejuvenate. This is a word that IELTS examiners will love to see. It's a very precise word, very natural word as well. But I need to explain this in a little bit more detail and why this is relevant to sleep. So anyone who gets inadequate sleep may start suffering from poor health. And again, I need to get into more detail about this. Indeed, studies show that lack of sleep may contribute to diabetes and cancer. So I've mentioned two of the diseases that I mentioned in my plan, diabetes and cancer. I know from my own personal knowledge that there are studies that link lack of sleep to disease. So that's why I've written it. I can now add a little bit more. I had this third idea, which I didn't include in my plan, about a bad mood, but I'll put this down now. In addition to physical health, failing to get a good night's sleep can also affect your mental health. And I'll extend this in a bit more detail as well. Tired people are more prone to irritability and a short temper. So I've got into more detail here. So I've developed this third idea, just 2 sentences on that one. So that's body paragraph 1. Now let's talk about the solutions. And my first solution was medication. Medication. So let's put that there so I can think about the plan and look at the plan while I write. A couple of broad solutions may help people who can't get enough sleep. So that's a broad introduction to the section of the essay about solutions. So let's now talk about medication. The first is medication. Powerful drugs like temazepam can assist people in getting to sleep. And then I can go on. While levels of the natural sleep-inducing hormone, melatonin, can be taken in tablet form. So there's a good phrase there, sleep-inducing hormone. Again, IELTS examiners will love that. And then I can mention chamomile tea now. But even herbal remedies can help. A drink of chamomile tea in the evening, for example, can help ready the body and mind for sleep. So that's the first part of body paragraph 2, talking about medication. So I've taken all the ideas and supporting information from my plan and turned them into complete sentences in my paragraph. And now let's go to my second main idea, evening habits. And I'll write this down in the second part of body paragraph 2. A second and perhaps better solution may be to develop evening habits that prepare you for sleep. People need to wind down and relax during the evening if they are to get to sleep properly, so we should avoid computer screens or any activities that may stimulate the brain. Now, I know this from personal experience. If I use my laptop too late, I can't get to sleep. I put down in my plan reading, so let's talk about that. Reading a good novel can be one of the best sleep aids for many people. So that's explained my idea about evening habits, and I've extended that with some supporting information. And finally, the conclusion. This only needs to be very short. I simply need to summarize my problems and solutions in the conclusion. To conclude, lack of sleep can impact both physical and mental health. So I've talked about the problems here, but medication and a relaxing evening routine can help overcome the problem. And so that one sentence should be sufficient for the conclusion. It simply summarizes my main ideas from the 2 body paragraphs. So that's the end of the essay. I hope that gives this guy some help with his sleep problems. Hopefully it's shown you as well some good ways of writing an essay like this. Now, to download the full essay and to get some practice exercises using the language in this essay, don't forget to click on the link in the description and you can download a PDF and some activities. You'll get access to some activities that help you learn the language and write a similar kind of essay. So thanks for watching.